MasterChef is our last activity this week. So you might want to be thinking about what we've been saying about imagining and inventing and kindness. You might go back to the first recipes we made, and you might make some more fairy cakes, decorate a nice box and give them to somebody as an act of kindness. Perhaps you'd like to make something different. So I thought today we might make some jam tarts, because some of you had jam or lemon curd from making the fairy cakes. So if you've never made pastry, this is what you need to make pastry. I measure in ounces, and I use 4 ounces of plain flour, tiny pinch of salt, and 2 ounces of butter. It should be butter for pastry, but it could be margarine, I think. And a couple of tablespoons of cold water. If you're measuring in grams, so in ounces it's half of. If you're measuring in grams, the recipe I have says 125 grams of flour and 55 grams of butter. And you put the flour and salt in a bowl and you add the butter. And it should be butter in a way because it should be cold. And the thing about pastry, which I never liked when I was little, was that then you have to put your hands, after you've washed them, into the bowl and to mix the flour and the butter together so that you have lots of little bits of crumbs. Nothing that is separately flour or butter. You mix it together nice and quickly till you have lots of crumbs. And then you take a knife or a fork or a spoon and you stir in just enough water to bring it together. When you have got it all together into one ball of dough, it's a good idea to perhaps put it on a plate with some cling film and put it in the fridge for 10 minutes, because you should really use it cold. Then you'll be able to roll it out more easily. You probably have a rolling pin, perhaps, but if you haven't, can you use your imagination to find something which will roll out your pastry flat? And then you'll need to cut it. You might have a pastry cutter with a little frilly edge, or I'm sure you can find something that will cut a round circle. So you need to find a circle that will fit in a bun tray or bun tin. I think maybe you have bun tins because you made the buns in them. If you don't, maybe there's a whole other activity there to work out how you might manage to make them. So you're going to cut out a circle of pastry and put it in something which will allow it to make sides. And then you're going to put into that a teaspoon of jam or a teaspoon of lemon curd. Now, it might be the tastiest jam or the yummiest lemon curd you've ever had. It probably not to be done with Nutella this time. But don't be greedy, because if you put too much, it'll rise up all over the top of the pastry and all over the tray that you're using. And then you'll need to bake it. And you'll need to bake it so that it goes brown around the edge and melts the jam. It's probably a good idea, while you have your pastry in the fridge, to think about putting the oven on. So you'll want the oven at maybe 180 degrees or gas mark 6. And if I were you and you have a bun tin, I would grease the tin first. Otherwise, you have to take a knife to the jam tarts when they're done. Now, what else might you need to know? When you roll the pastry out, there's a perfect thickness. Not too thick, not too thin. Otherwise, the balance of jam and pastry won't be perfect. maybe about a pound coin thick. A teaspoon and a bit of jam. And if you needed a tiny little bit of pastry on the top, just as a pattern, then you could do. You'll need to bake them when you put them in the oven for maybe 15 minutes or a minute or so more if they're not quite golden. You bake them till the pastry's gold and the jam is beginning to bubble. Make sure that you have help when you take them out of the oven because the tray will be hot and the tarts will be hot. So leave them in the tray until they've cooled a little bit for you to take them out. And the jam will stay hot. So you have to stand and look at them being so tasty and smelling so tasty. Don't eat them till they've cooled. Enjoy making your jam tarts, and maybe when they've cooled you could wrap some of those up and give them away as an act of kindness. Yum! Enjoy baking, MasterChefs!